Saint Satine was supposed to be Hybe Geffen's next global girl group. But instead, it just kind of feels like they're like testing the waters and they really just debuted like a controversy machine. Over 14,000 girls applied to be the final member of this girl group. The final two were a girl named Ayana, I think that's how you pronounce it, who basically everybody was rooting for. She was kind of the fan favorite. Fans saw her as more experienced, more ready, you know. And then you have Sakura. Sakura, while cute, you know, is a 16-year-old girl when the rest of the members are like 20, 21, 22. And nothing against her, but like, you know, she just came across as less experienced and less like, I don't know, debut ready. Like she felt more like a potential pick than like a debut ready pick. And somehow, some way, Hybe Geffen chose the wrong option, which I feel like is kind of becoming a pattern at this point. They basically chose the option that would make one of their girl groups a topic of discussion, like a massive debate amongst the fans. So the question that I really want to try to answer in this video is, was it just bad planning or was this the plan all along? Because right now, Saint Satine doesn't really feel like a clean girl group launch. It feels like they just put these girls into a blender, but then they're shocked as to why it's like, you know, being viewed as a mess by everyone who's clocked in. And before we get into anything, I just want to make it clear that this video is not, or the intention of this video is not to drag a 16-year-old girl. I don't believe that Sakura is the problem. I think that the people who put this group together is. Hello, if you are new here, my name is Cedric. I talk about pop music and pop culture, and today we are talking about Saint Satine. Honestly, like their name isn't even my biggest issue. Like there are so many more issues that we need to talk about with them. The lineup is weird and kind of confusing. The age gap is very distracting. The rollout feels incredibly messy, and the worst part about the whole thing is that the music actually kind of works. Like the music is actually kind of good. So I don't view this as like a, you know, why are these girls doomed type of video. I'm just wondering like, what were they thinking? Like, why does it seem like they were trying to make their job as hard as possible? So some quick context, because I feel like this rollout has more like random side quests than I think are necessary. Hybe Geffen already made one global girl group that they gave us, which is Katseye. And in my opinion, Katseye worked, not in the way that everyone expected, and I don't know that they will continue to work long term, but I still think it can be argued that the concept of Katseye did work out pretty well. Katseye built a pretty strong fan base from the whole Netflix documentary, and even after that, they became part of the pop culture conversation. And based on how people are still talking about Katseye to this day, clearly the whole global girl group experiment has people invested. And Saint Satine is basically the next group in that world. The original trio, I guess you could say, before they officially debuted was Emily, Lexi, and Samara, who were all former Netflix Dream Academy contestants who did not end up making the finale and becoming part of Katseye. For months, these three girls were making content together. They were all being seen together and basically being discussed under the working name of Prelude. And honestly, in my opinion, the name Prelude made sense and kind of was a better name. But for whatever reason, we had another survival show where it was about finding the final girl of this group. They couldn't just be a trio. We needed one more member of this group. Because for whatever reason, survival shows are like super popular in terms of like, you know, building K-pop adjacent groups. I don't love them, so I have not seen either one of them, but I'm aware of them. But whether or not I'm a fan, I really do think that that initial concept was pretty clean. Like there was an actual story being built there. They just didn't really stick the landing. So like I said, Hybe Geffen launched this, you know, new survival show, World Scout, the final piece, you know, trying to find the fourth member of this group, formerly known as Prelude, but at some point will be known as Saint Satine. It came down to these two girls and Sakura won. Okay, we're all caught up now. But the moment that they added this girl to the group and they changed the name, I think that's really when the internet as a whole was like, huh, what are we doing here? What's the plan here? And I mean, the internet overreacts consistently. People online are going to find something to overreact to, right? But I do think that in this case, there is something there that I don't always find. Like I do feel like there's something to be discussed here. Like I do think that people are actually reacting to something that is like a real problem. Now I'm going to talk about the problem of choosing this fourth member of the group. But before that, I really do want to mention that I think that Hybe Geffen still doesn't seem to have a clear understanding or like philosophy of what they want to do for these global girl groups. It feels like they're just constantly throwing like girl group spaghetti balls at the wall and just like hoping that at some point something sticks. But from the outside looking in, it still feels like they're like testing this concept in public. Katseye worked, but I have this gut feeling that Katseye working as well as they did was not something that Hybe Geffen really expected to happen. Like, I think, they were happy with the success of Touch, obviously, but once the gnarly moment happened, that's when they really were like trying to latch onto the success of that moment. And it feels like they really were starting to understand, like, people arguing, people, being upset and having debates about the members and I think at this point, they do understand that, like, a lot of times controversy does help to increase the likelihood that a group is going to be inserted into kind of the cultural zeitgeist. Like, people arguing, people being mad, debating about the members or whatever, like, that does work. But people talking about you is not the same as people caring about you. And I'm just not sure that, they've figured that out yet. And that's why this whole Satine thing is so interesting, because it's like, it doesn't feel like a more polished version of Katseye, like I've heard a lot of people say. It feels like just another experiment to see what happens. Like, let's try this lineup. Let's try this name. Let's see if this connects with people, even though, like, I felt they could have just asked us, or they could have just kept the name they already had. And like, it's like, yeah, that might get attention, but that's not going to get you trust. And if you keep asking people to trust a messy process, eventually people are going to stop feeling excited about, the groups that you keep debuting. Like, people are going to start feeling used at some point. Sakura is not the villain. The girl is 16 years old. Like, she did not cast herself. She didn't create the show, like she was not the one in the boardroom or whatever, sitting at the table going like, what would piss everyone off? Me. Like, she did what all the other 13,999 girls did. She competed and she won. Like, good for you, girl. But now she has to basically walk into a group that people have already decided that she doesn't belong in. A pop group is made of real people, but the way a company packages them is a product. So I do get people having conversations about this because, the lineup, how they're marketed, all of that is part of a package. And when the package you're selling is confusing, people are going to talk about it. People are going to have opinions about it. But Hybe Geffen is the one who created this setup, but the girls are the ones that are going to have to live with it. For this next section, like, when I talk about how much this age gap does bother me, I'm not saying Sakura bothers me. I'm saying the decision to put her here kind of bothers me. Like, I've heard people say some things like, the age gap is not even the biggest issue. The biggest issue is going to be like the language barrier and is she even ready? And like, I don't agree with that. I really do feel like the biggest elephant in the room, the biggest problem here with this decision is the age gap. From what I had seen, I'm not going to pretend like I knew everything about this girl group or whatever, especially because they haven't even debuted yet. I don't know as much about them as I do about Katseye, but from what I've seen, it felt like the goal with the original trio was to set them up to go down a more mature direction. Not anything inappropriate, but, just something a little more grown, possibly like an R&B influenced sound, because everything nowadays is influenced by R&B in some way. But just like, I don't know, more sleek, more adult, And that would make the most sense because the three girls that were in the group were all adults. Now, if that trio, evidently eventually started doing more like mature, sensual, sexy choreography, people are going to have opinions, especially K-pop fans, because K-pop fans have opinions about like idols breathing wrong. So like, But I still think that overall, it would still make sense with the vibe that trio was giving initially. But then you add in, especially seeing some of those Emily dance clips, like that girl could dance. Oh my gosh. But then you add in a 16-year-old, and then all of a sudden the whole vibe shifts. The whole conversation changes. Now everything they do, like their styling, their lyrics, their like marketing, how they're marketed, their visual choices, like all of that has to be filtered through the lens of like, okay, so now we're talking about doing all of this with a minor. And yeah, like plenty of pop stars like Britney Spears and whatever, like started pretty young. I do acknowledge that. And I can't say that I love that idea in and of itself, but I mean, what am I going to do about it? It is what it is. But I think what makes this feel a little different is that she's the only minor. Like the group already had a more mature image forming fans were already getting like used to 3 people. And now she's being kind of shoehorned into this as like the controversial pick. And I think that's a lot to put on one person, personally. And a 5-year age gap on paper is not that big of a deal. Like, you're 30 and you're dating someone who's 25 or whatever. Like, no one's gonna bat an eye about that. That's, who cares, you know? But the younger you get, the more that age gap starts to like go like, oh, okay, you're 20 and you're dating someone who's 15? Like, that's crazy, you know? The adolescent years make this so much more of a conversation. Like, those years matter. I just don't love the idea that it feels like they brought a teenager into an adult conversation. I don't know. And like I said, I did not watch the documentaries, the survival, competition shows or whatever. So I'm really reacting to conversations happening online, clips that I've seen, there's things here and there. And from what I can tell, it feels like most people who were really invested in this felt like Ayana just made more sense for the sound that people were expecting this group to eventually have. Like, she just made more sense for where the group was heading. She's older and she just felt more ready for a more mature sound and, marketing push. Like, Sakura always felt like a potential pick. Like, at some point you will debut and you will be incredible. But like, for right now, like, you just need some more time to, to live life or whatever. So I think that's why a lot of people feel like this feels weird, because it's like you put the potential pick in a group with 3 other members who are all like ready to go, like debut ready. If everyone is on the same journey of like, we're all, developing, we're all, getting there, eventually we'll get where we need to go, then sure, like that's what you're trying to sell, that's fine, whatever. But like, when 3 members have already been trained, marketed, and like built up for months, and then you add in a member who feels like they need more time, it just feels like the majority of the group has to like slow down. I'm just gonna say it, unpopular opinion probably, I think that Saint Satine should have stayed a trio. It is what it is. Like, that's just how I feel. And considering that they're not a trio, I know that I'm going to have difficulty really being invested in this girl group, to be honest with you. And again, not an insult to Sakura, but from a pure like branding perspective, you've already pushed this group with a name and a lineup. You told people that this group was Emily, Lexi, and Samara. That was the unit. And then all of a sudden, a new person comes in. Like, people can adjust, groups can change, lineups change all the time, especially in pop groups. But, first impressions do matter. And if you spend months teaching people that, this is supposed to be a trio, this is what the group is, this is the lineup, and then you just kind of throw in another person, like, I just don't think you can be shocked when people view the 4th person as kind of like an interruption. And it's just not really a great way to sell the chemistry that I think they're trying to sell. And it's unfortunate, but it at least to me, it feels like Saint Satine is more of like in the Fifth Harmony realm of things, where it's like 4 talented girls standing next to each other. It no longer feels like a unit, like one world yet. And the name, I'm sorry, the name, we have to talk about the name just for a second. Prelude was better. Prelude was clearly better for multiple reasons. The name Prelude felt like it had a story, a reason to exist. Like, it told you something about the group and the process. Saint Satine kind of sounds like a description of the concept rather than the concept itself. It's like the people who were making the decision were like, we want something that just has so much like charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. And then someone else was like, what if we just make that the name? And I know that names grow on people. I think Katseye grew on people. Like, Le Seraphim grew on people. We have so many examples. Like, I think Fifth Harmony initially was like, but like, sure, I guess. Even like New Jeans probably sounded weird until it didn't, So maybe Saint Satine will grow on us. Maybe in a year, we'll be saying their name with full confidence and we're not thinking about, crackers or salmon or whatever. I'm not going to harp on this name too much more, but I feel like Saint Satine just sounds like a perfume at TJ Maxx or something. I don't know. I just think that your name is so important because it's like, it's the first door for people to like, become invested in an artist. And I don't know. As someone who's releasing his own music this year, I know how important branding is, and that's like really where my mind is at right now. And we should have just kept the name that we had. And what really pisses me off about this whole thing is that like the issue that I have with Katseye is that their performance ability, top notch, visuals, top notch, the music, hot garbage, right? Saint Satine is like the opposite. Like everything else besides the music I'm questioning, but the music itself kind of slaps. When I first heard Party Before the Party, now it wasn't like an earth-shattering moment where I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the best thing that I've ever heard in my life. But I was moving, you know? I haven't gone to Spotify or Apple Music or whatever and listened to it over and over and over again, but it felt like there's potential here. Like it felt like, okay, this feels like the music we've been asking Katseye for. Like, you know, thank you, right? Give us that more grown, R&B leaning, you know, pop girl group sound. I was super excited because it just felt like whoever's making their music really was giving us something fun and not just like, you know, I don't know, just something that feels less like it was trying to annoy you into streaming it. And I like Katseye. I've talked about Katseye a lot on my channel. I just feel like their label keeps giving them songs that are designed to start fights, which I just don't love. So then Saint Satine comes along and I'm like, wait, is this the more polished version of what we got before? Was that the whole point of this whole thing? Like the most interesting thing about Saint Satine right now should be their music. But instead, the whole conversation is about the group lineup and who does or doesn't deserve to be there. And it's not just the songs. Like I really do feel like the group is pretty balanced. Like, I did watch that live performance that they did. I think it was for, like, you know, when Sakura was added. And, like, Lexi, really, really good singer. I suspect that she's supposed to be, like, the visual because she is so pretty. She's, like, very, very pretty face. Like I said before, Emily is a ridiculous dancer. Like, I cannot stress enough how amazing of a dancer she is. And I think in Party Before the Party, she had, like, the rap. So I don't know if she can sing, to be honest. She might just be, you know, giving us the work that, which is fine. Every group needs a rhythmic speaker. And I know that Samara has, like, from what I can tell, nobody likes her. Or, like, she has a lot of controversy. I don't know why. I'm not going to pretend like I know why. And you can tell me in the comments below why no one likes her or no one seemed to like her. But I got to give the girl her tens. Like, her voice, out of that performance, she was the most stable one there. So I will give her that. Girl can sing. And Sakura, like, I just think that she's just, I don't want to keep harping on her age, but I just think she's too young for me to, like, accurately critique in terms of like her vocals and stuff. I will say that I wasn't gagging, but like, you know, she's young. The girl's time to grow. When I was 16 years old, I was awful. I couldn't hold a pitch to save my life. You know, you need time to cook. Like, you need time to marinate. Like, just because you season something doesn't mean that, like, you know, you gotta let it sit, you know, for at least a day or two, and then you throw it on the grill. So, like, oh my gosh. Especially with like an R&B leaning sound, I just think that your blend, your warmth, the texture of everything really matters. Especially when you get out of the studio. It just, as of right now, it kind of feels like their voices are taking turns at the microphone rather than feeling like one collective vocal unit. Like right now, the idea of Saint Satine feels like it's supposed to be, you know, an elegant, sophisticated R&B adjacent global sound. But the actual identity just still kind of feels like it's buffering. Now, do I think that Hybe Geffen is using rage bait to market this group? Honestly, I don't know. I don't work there. And I think that saying that with full confidence is a bit of a reach. But I do have some thoughts in that arena. Like, first of all, I do think that the incentives do reward mess. Like, whether or not I think all the controversy is intentional, I do think that the system rewards it. Especially because like K-pop or K-pop adjacent fans, they don't hate something and then like leave it alone. They don't go like, oh, I don't like this, so I'm not going to, you know, participate in it or like partake in it. K-pop fans hate something and then it feels like they just work 24 hours a day to investigate and find everything wrong about it. Find everything about it that they just can't stand. They're making threads and, you know, comparing fan cams, and they will literally watch a performance thousands of times just to make sure that they acknowledge everything that's bad about it. Regardless of how you feel about it, though, that's still attention, and it still keeps the name of Hybe and Geffen's groups alive. So whether or not they planned all of this controversy or they just stumbled upon it, like, the result is still the same. So, like, people are talking, they're watching, you know, they're arguing with each other, and it just makes the whole thing a little more impossible to ignore. But what I will never enjoy is that, like, the company gets the attention and the girls just kind of get the crappy part of the arguments, the comment sections. It's just frustrating because it's like the company makes the decisions, the audience fights about them, the algorithm rewards the arguments, and then the girls just kind of have to live in it all. Sakura is going to be judged until the end of time for just being shoehorned into a group. Samara, like I said, I don't know all of her past controversy, but I do know that it's going to follow her for probably the rest of her career, especially in this group. I've noticed that Emily seems to get picked apart for her appearance, which is crazy because not only is she pretty, but, like, again, the girl can move. And from what I understand, Lexi left the original show, so she's always going to face questions about why she left that show, but then just jumped back into basically a new version of the same system. And I think that it might teeter off as time goes on, but it is going to be a long time before people stop essentially looking at this group as, like, katseye rejects. I believe these girls want this badly. Like, you can see it. They want to make it. They want to perform. They want to be artists. But unfortunately, the company put them in a situation where the conversation is not about their music or their talents. It's about, you know, everything else. It's the, well, why is she 16? Why is she here? Why is this? Why is that? So do I think that Saint Satine still has a shot to succeed? Yeah, absolutely. I think that if the music is good enough, people will absolutely adjust. The chemistry might improve. Sakura might find her footing a lot quicker than we all expect her to. The group might find their sound, like what really works for them. And we could fast forward, you know, 6 months. And I'm just sitting here with my little Saint Saltine cracker is just eating my words because the group is, like, thriving and everything is going amazing for them. But I do think the bar for that is so much higher because this rollout has just created so many unnecessary questions and conversations. They could have had a cleaner story, a better rollout, or they could have just kept the group as a trio and kept the original name that they had. But that's just not how this turned out. And so instead, now the girls have to sing, dance, and perform their way out of a mess they didn't even create. So no, I don't think that Saint Satine is doomed. I just think it's unfortunate that they were handed a rollout that just seemed to be doomed from the start, that they didn't need, nor did they deserve. Now, I want to hear from you guys. Do you agree with me that Prelude was a better name? Do you think they should have stayed a trio? What are your thoughts about this whole thing? I would love to know kind of how everyone's feeling about this. And most importantly, do you think that good music can fix a messy rollout, especially over time? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please subscribe for more videos like this. And I appreciate you hanging out for me today. And I love you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.